In every social environment, there is an unspoken economy of presence. The more often someone is seen, the more their image is consumed, dissected, and eventually discarded. Exposure creates familiarity, and familiarity strips away mystique until nothing remains but predictable outlines. Those who are constantly available are mapped in detail. Their moods, habits, and vulnerabilities cataloged by the silent observation of others. And when the map is complete, control follows. A person without mystery becomes a resource to be used, not a force to be feared. You don't notice it at first. The slow erosion, the way their eyes stop searching for meaning. When you walk in, you've become background noise in your own life. Every smile, every presence, every word. Predictable, they think they know you because you've allowed them to collect you in fragments. And with each fragment, you become smaller. Machiavelli understood that men are so simple and so much creatures of circumstance that the deceiver will always find someone who will let himself be deceived. But here's the deeper cruelty. They don't even need to deceive you. They just need to see you enough times to believe they own you. And ownership breeds carelessness. They will forget the sharpness you once had because they've grown comfortable dulling it in their minds. Absence is not weakness, it is pressure. When you vanish, they will try to trace you, to slot you back into the predictable loop you've broken. And when they can't, their certainty will decay into speculation. The human mind cannot tolerate unanswered questions. It will invent versions of you to fill the void. Some grander, some darker than the truth. This is why your withdrawal must be absolute. No sightings, no digital footprints, no stray messages to calm their nerves. You are not gone. You are simply unobservable. And in that silence, you become larger than life. But disappearance is more than leaving. It's removing yourself from the board so completely that they begin to doubt their own position. The friend wonders if they lost your loyalty. The rival wonders if they provoked you. The admirer wonders if they disappointed you. All three are now operating in a fog you created. This is where scarcity becomes dominance, when their desire for your presence outweighs your need for theirs. You do not chase. You do not explain. The 90 days are your weapon, and every second of absence sharpens the blade. This is not retreat. Retreat suggests fear, and fear leaves a scent. This is calculated starvation, depriving them of the image they've grown used to feeding on. And when you return, you will not step back into the same role you left. You will return as something reforged, someone whose presence now carries weight simply because it is rare. The ones who once took you for granted will hesitate before speaking your name, and the hesitation is the proof the silence has worked. You have become untouchable, not because you are stronger, but because you are no longer theirs to hold. Patterns form quietly. Over time, movements become cycles, and cycles become cages. The more often those cycles are observed, the more tightly the cage closes. Predictability is not the byproduct of routine. It is the erosion of freedom. Once the sequence is visible, the ending is already written, and control shifts from the one who acts to the one who anticipates. You've been studied longer than you think. They know the sound of your footsteps before they hear them. They know when you'll answer a message and when you'll ignore it. They can predict your anger, your laughter, your silences. And that means they can choose when to provoke them. You've given them a script, and now they direct your life without you even seeing the stage. Machiavelli warned that Whoever becomes the cause of another, becoming powerful, is ruined. But the inverse is also true. When others can predict your moves, you are the one building their strength. Every reaction they extract from you makes them more confident in their control, until you are performing a role you never auditioned for. That is why disappearing is more than leaving. It is breaking the rhythm of your existence in such a way that no one can keep time with you anymore. The first step is to see your own loops. Clearly, the coffee shop where you're recognized, the conversations you return to out of habit, the predictable times you appear online. Every one of these is a tether. They feel harmless, but they form the pathways others walk to reach you. And the longer those paths remain open, the less effort it takes to invade your space. So you begin to erase yourself from those familiar coordinates. You stop showing up where you've always been seen. You decline the invitations you once accepted without thinking. You cut off the small talk that kept you anchored in their daily awareness. Even your silences become unpredictable. Sometimes answering quickly, sometimes disappearing entirely, until no one can plot your emotional weather. When there is no clear rhythm to your presence, there is no safe way to approach you. This withdrawal must be absolute in its intent, but invisible in its execution. You do not tell them what you are doing. You do not warn them that you are breaking the loop. The point is to make your absence feel accidental to them, while you know it is deliberate. If they suspect intention, they may prepare for your return. If they believe it's simply distance, they will underestimate the change taking place. As days pass without the familiar touch points, their grip begins to weaken. The friend who once relied on your quick reply hesitates before sending a message. The colleague who always knew your schedule finds themselves guessing. The rival who thought they could push your buttons no longer knows which ones still exist. You are not resisting their control. You are removing the levers entirely. By the time the loop is fully dismantled, they will have no reliable way to read you. And without a read, they have no control. That is the quiet power of unpredictability. It doesn't just protect you from manipulation, it erases the possibility of it. The cage remains where it was, but the person it was built for no longer fits inside. Silence is not empty. It is a weapon with a slow kill rate. When you withdraw, the noise you once made is replaced by an absence that gnaws at the mind. Every unanswered message becomes a question. Every unread signal becomes an accusation. The void is not neutral. It is a stage where imagination performs its most dangerous plays. In the absence of your voice, others begin to write their own versions of your story, each one darker than the last. This is not coincidence. This is the architecture of psychological warfare. Your silence is not passive. It is an act of pressure, exerted without movement, spoken without words. People fear what they cannot read, and nothing is harder to read than the blank page you have become. In conversation, they once had a measure of you. They could see your eyes, hear your tone, detect your tells. But when you remove yourself from reach, they are left to fight shadows in their own minds. The absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. As Machiavelli wrote, "Men sooner forget the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony." Your silence feels like theft, not of money, but of certainty, of control, of the comfort they thought they had over you. In social combat, most attacks require a reaction to survive. A blow thrown into emptiness feels foolish. An insult that lands without a response withers in the air. When you are not there to absorb the strike, your opponent swings at ghosts. Over time, their attempts to provoke you make them appear desperate, erratic, even weak. They reveal their intentions to the world, while you remain a question mark. Every day you do not respond, their credibility erodes a little more. They speak into a void, and the void swallows their voice whole. During these 90 days, you maintain a zero-response policy. Absolute and unbroken. No explanations, no clarifications, not even subtle signals to let them know you are watching. You give them nothing, because nothing is the most unstable ground a mind can stand on, even to accusations, even to false stories, even to invitations that tempt your curiosity. You remain still. This stillness is not inaction. It is control. You are no longer reacting to the world. The world is reacting to you. Your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting the insecurities and fears of those who try to read you. They imagine your anger, your judgment, your strategies. But these are not yours. They are theirs, projected onto a surface that offers no correction. And so, they begin to see their own weaknesses more clearly than they see you. They start to lose the game without realizing you are still playing. That is the paradox of the silent hunt. The prey moves in circles, exhausting itself, while the hunter waits, invisible and unshaken. Most vanishings are wasted. The subject removes themselves from sight, but time consumes them instead of sharpening them. They return with the same posture, the same weaknesses, the same dullness in the eyes, only now accompanied by the scent of irrelevance. Absence, when empty, does not elevate. It only confirms to the world that nothing of value was lost. But you will not waste the shadows. You will enter them like a cocoon designed not for comfort, but for the violent tearing away of who you were. The first day feels like exile. The second feels like suffocation. And then, the silence starts working on you, stripping away distractions, peeling off the identities you wore for the approval of others. The world begins to forget you. And that is when the real work begins. You must understand this. Predators who disappear and return, unchanged, are no different from prey, hiding until danger passes. Your absence must be a forge. Every hour unseen is a weapon being sharpened. Niccolò Machiavelli warned, "A prince must learn to act as both the lion and the fox." This is your moment to grow your claws in private and your cunning in secret. While they speculate on your downfall, you are stacking advantages. They will only recognize too late. The transformation cannot be partial. It must burn through the physical, the mental, and the strategic layers of your being. You do not just return stronger. You return unrecognizable. If they expect decay, give them intimidation. If they expect desperation, give them abundance. In these 90 days, your body language must shift from hesitant to predatory. Your skills must stretch beyond what anyone thought you capable of. And your resources must be positioned like loaded traps, invisible until sprung. The critical mistake would be leaking signs of progress. If the prey smells the lion's approach, it flees before the strike. You must appear dormant. Offer no images, no updates, no digital breadcrumbs for the curious to follow. Let your absence seem like withdrawal. Let them laugh. Let them doubt. Let them lower their guard. Because the moment they stop watching is the moment their perception becomes vulnerable to collapse. And when you step back into the arena, it must be a violent contradiction to everything they believed in your absence. They will see the physical difference first. The sharpened eyes, the steady gaze, the subtle confidence in your stance. Then they will hear it in your voice, measured, calm, carrying the weight of someone who has conquered battles in silence. And finally, they will feel it. The unspoken reality that you are no longer someone who can be touched, cornered, or dismissed. In this way, disappearance stops being retreat and becomes metamorphosis. You are not hiding, you are building. And when the time comes to return, you will not come back seeking a place in their world. You will arrive to reshape it. That is the power of transforming in the shadows. They forget the old version of you, and you make certain they never meet it again. There is a moment in every absence when the absence itself becomes the story. The mind of the crowd does not tolerate gaps in its understanding, so it begins to build explanations from fragments, assumptions, and projections. In that vacuum, theories multiply, some flattering, some hostile, but all tied to the figure who is not there. The return does not erase these narratives. It crystallizes them into something permanent. They will look at you as though searching for proof of their guesses. And in that instant, you hold more power than you realize. The first words you speak will determine whether they remember you as a curiosity or as a threat. You want their questions to remain half-fed, their conclusions half-formed. The instinct to satisfy their curiosity is the trap, because once you give them the truth, they stop thinking about you. That is why you keep your answers short, heavy with suggestion, and light on detail. You walk back into their world, carrying the weight of your absence like a weapon. Every smile, every pause, every glance tells them you saw more, learned more, and became more than they expected. Men are so simple, Machiavelli observed, and so much inclined to obey immediate needs, that a deceiver will never lack victims. Your silence in those first conversations is not avoidance. It is control. It forces them to chase the story rather than live in it. When someone presses too hard, you do not retreat. You redirect. Mention the new position, the sharpened skill, the change in your priorities. Every detail they want about where you were is replaced with a detail about what you now are. You turn their hunger for gossip into a hunger for association. The less they know of the road you took, the more they believe it was one only the rare can walk. In time, they will tell your story for you, each version adding another layer of power you never had to claim directly. You do not linger with those who demand explanations. You give time only to those who accept the mystery without protest. In doing so, you mark them as insiders, even if they are not. The rest will circle, speculate, and talk in hushed tones about what you might have been doing. And in their attempts to define you, they only define themselves as outsiders to something greater. This is why you never return as if nothing happened. You return as if the time was deliberate, as if the 90 days were not an escape, but a campaign. Your absence was the sharpening of the blade. Your reappearance is the cut. The more you leave unsaid, the more your presence becomes unbearable to those who feel beneath it. And in that discomfort, you secure the most enduring position of all, not the one they can understand, but the one they cannot touch. In every hierarchy, proximity erodes mystique. The familiar presence becomes an unguarded one, its weight measured and its influence quietly diminished. When a figure is always available, the mind stops reaching for them. Power is not simply taken. It is allowed to slip away when distance is abandoned. You return, and they expect you to resume where you left off. But the truth is, you didn't just step away for 90 days. You rewired the rules of engagement. You are no longer a fixture in their world. You are an apparition, Each step you take back into their awareness is deliberate, calculated, and rare enough to make them lean forward. They cannot predict when you will be seen again, and that uncertainty becomes its own form of control. They feel the absence before they notice the presence. You walk in, and the room shifts, not because of volume or force, but because of scarcity. They have been trained, in your absence, to assign value to every second you are within reach. Machiavelli wrote that men more quickly forget the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony. Your presence is now patrimony, something they fear losing again. And fear is far more useful than comfort. You are not there to be consumed. You are there to be felt. When you speak, it is to make a single point, not to be drawn into the swarm of voices. When you move, it is toward outcomes you chose long before arriving. They cannot touch you because you are never still long enough for their hands or their influence to take hold. This distance is not isolation. It is insulation. They will test it. Invitations will come disguised as opportunities, designed to pull you back into their schedule, their rhythm, their control. But you already know the truth. Constant presence is currency spent too easily. The less they can have of you, the more they are willing to pay for it. In loyalty, in compliance, in silence. You are not withholding for cruelty's sake. You are withholding because proximity without purpose is a tax on power. You move in and out of sight, like a tide that never loses its pattern. They cannot tell if you are drawing near or pulling away. And so they adapt to live with that question. In time, they stop expecting you on their terms. They start preparing for you on yours. Strategic distance becomes not just a tactic, but a permanent structure. It keeps them from growing comfortable. It keeps you from being captured. Your disappearance was never meant to be reversed. It was meant to teach them that access to you is conditional, and that you alone write those conditions. Power is not gained by being present. It is preserved by being rare. You are not here to be constant. You are here to be necessary, and necessity bends even the proudest will. There is a moment when a figure returns from absence and the air changes. Familiar faces study them differently. Movements are slower, more deliberate. Words are measured. No one can quite recall how they used to treat this person before they vanished. Time away has rewired the mental hierarchy, not through noise, but through the quiet erosion of old familiarity. What once felt ordinary is now untouchable. You return, and yet you are not the same. Every step you take now carries weight, because they no longer have the comfort of knowing you will always be there. Their memories of you are outdated, and outdated information breeds hesitation. That hesitation is power, the kind that cannot be faked, because it comes from uncertainty. They will test it, but they will do so carefully, unsure of what has changed in you while you were gone. The first thing they notice is your silence. You no longer rush to explain, to justify, to bridge the gap for their comfort. Instead, you let them reach into the void you left and come back with nothing certain. Machiavelli wrote that men sooner forget the death of their father than the loss of their patrimony. In your absence, you became their lost patrimony, something they once owned in familiarity, now taken beyond their reach. They will not forgive that loss easily, and yet they will not risk damaging what might still be of value to them. You will feel the pull, the subtle invitations to step back into your old role, to be predictable again, and you will ignore them, because the moment you fall back into their rhythm. You dissolve the edge your absence has carved. Instead, you choose your appearances with precision. You become a rare commodity. And rare commodities are not bargained with. They dictate the terms. They set the price. Now, their conversations about you are built on speculation. They fill the silence with theories, with fears, with projections of who you might now be. The more they guess, the more you control them, not by force, but by letting their minds do the work you used to do for them. You are no longer fighting for space in their perception. You have become the center of it. To remain untouchable, you do not simply return. You orbit differently. You let them wonder if you will vanish again, and you allow that wondering to shape their behavior. The threat of your absence becomes more powerful than your presence. You no longer exist on their timeline. They now exist on yours. And when they finally realize they cannot predict you, they will stop trying to control you. This is how you remain beyond reach. You turn disappearance into a cycle, a quiet storm that erases any map they try to draw of you. Let the memory of your absence stay longer than your presence, and you will never be trapped in their hands again. Untouchable is not invincible. It is ungraspable. It is the state where they can see you, but never truly hold you.